I can't go in there. And it's not necessary for me to go to this particular restaurant. Hi, it's Sonia here with The Widow Life. Welcome to my channel. And as I'm sure you've guessed, I am a widow, and I started this channel because I feel like there's just not a lot out there regarding widows in general or widowers. I feel like a lot of people have misconceptions about widows or widowers. I just kind of thought maybe I would shed some light on what it's actually like to be a widow. And I am not really young. I'm 50 years old. I'm going to be 51 in 2 weeks, so but I'm, not young, I'm not old. I'm kind of in that in between, age, and I'm a widow. I became a widow when I was 48 years old, and it wasn't something that was expected. I thought my husband and I, we would become empty nesters and, grow old together. And then, of course, eventually one of us would have to be the first to go. But you don't really think that that's going to happen until you're, in your late 70s or 80s. But unfortunately, it happened to me a lot earlier. So I just thought that I would have this channel to kind of help other widows or widowers and encourage them. There's just not a whole lot out there. There's a lot on like grief, and especially when you first experience your loss, I feel like there is a lot of helpful information regarding that. But then it's kind of like, okay, what's next, and how does that look like? I'm still feeling sad. It's been 2.5 years almost for me, and some people think, okay, well, it's been that long, then you should be perfectly fine, and then you have those days when you're not, and you're just like, am I normal? Am I not normal? So, that's kind of why I started this channel, to kind of just shed some light on what it's like. And, widows and widowers, we're just regular people that have suffered a loss, a significant loss. And we're just trying to figure out life just like everybody else is. And today I thought I would talk about triggers. My last video, I touched a little bit about that, and I thought I would talk about it a little bit more. I feel like the word triggers or triggering is kind of like a buzzword, especially in today. Everybody gets triggered by something, but when you have suffered a loss, I've noticed that there are things that do trigger you. And I have gone through counseling myself. I have gone through a group called Grief Share, and I do really recommend both of those things if you feel like you need it. And especially with the Grief Share, it really helps show you whether you're grieving normally, or what's normal, what's not normal. I mean, there's really not a rule book as far as how to grieve, but sometimes, you're wondering like, well, I'm not like so-and-so who, lost their husband or wife, and what's wrong with me? And so, everybody's different, and everybody's grief journey is going to look differently, especially depending on how the loss happened, if it was expected, unexpected. There's, all kinds of things. But for most of us that have suffered a loss, we will experience something that will trigger us, and it might not be what you think it is. I'm almost 2.5 years since my husband died, and there are still days where just something will kind of set me off, and sometimes it just kind of happens out of the blue. Like, there are certain places that I know will trigger me, so I actually just don't go to them. And I know, like, probably my counselor or whatever would say, oh, you need to go, but like, one is a particular restaurant. We ate there less than a week before he died, and it was we had a wonderful meal. It's like a happy, sad memory, but I really just, I can't go in there, and it's not necessary for me to go to this particular restaurant, so I'm just not going to. And whether that's healthy or not, like, I'm just not going to. And as I tell like friends and my kids, I'm like, well, if something is really stressing you out and you can avoid that stress, then do that. Now, of course, you can't avoid all stresses. You know, like paying my bills stresses me out, but I can't avoid it. I have to do it. But avoiding this restaurant, I don't have to eat there if I don't want to. It's not mandatory for me to eat there. So I'm choosing not to because I know that will trigger me. There's also one of my husband's favorite stores was this particular tool store. I don't have to go there. I'm not super into tools. I don't need to go there. It's not necessary for me to go there at all. So, I feel like maybe that's unhealthy. I don't know, but I like, at this stage of my life, I can make my own decisions and choices, and I'm choosing not to go there. But there can be other things, like little things that will just set you off. Like I know sometimes, like I talked in my previous video, like I was talking about the grocery store, and my husband loved food. He was very, very picky about his food, but he did love food. He liked going to the grocery store and buying food, and he often would go after work as it was on the way home from work, and then he would call me and ask me if we needed milk or we needed, sugar or cereal or whatever. And I really miss that. So when I see somebody in the store, calling their significant other, saying those same things like, hey, I forgot my list, or do we need milk or butter or whatever, like it just, like I'm not bursting into tears in the store, but it's like a little stab to the heart a little bit. And I'm sure, what's that saying? When you know, and you probably understand what I mean. It's just that little reminder that he's really not here, and I don't, have that person to call to ask, can you pick milk up? Do we need milk? Do we need butter? I mean, it's a little thing. It might seem silly to someone else, but, it's just that is a trigger that, often it bothers me. It sets me off a little bit. Another one, especially in the beginning, I've gotten used to it, was right after he died, the toothbrush. We shared a toothbrush holder. The holder we had 2 slots, and one for mine and one for his. And for the longest time, I couldn't get rid of his toothbrush because I knew he was gone. It wasn't like I was living in denial and was like, oh, he's away, like I knew he was gone. I am a Christian. I know he is with the Lord. He is whole. He is healthy, happy, which makes me happy because, he really suffered with his illness, on and off towards the end of his life. So, that gives me comfort, but just that whole toothbrush thing, just seeing that, that was, knowing that he's not here anymore. And, it took me a while to get rid of that toothbrush. But I kept it in there for a while, and, I did finally get rid of it. But it's still like, most nights, I'm getting ready for bed and brushing my teeth, I'm not really thinking about it. But once in a while, like, I'll just glance, and it's like that reminder that, it just kind of triggers me a little bit that, I'm really alone. Like, I'm already getting upset about it. That I really am a widow. And, some people don't even like the word widow. Like, that doesn't bother me so much because it's a fact, it's true. But, most days I'm really busy. I have 3 kids. 2 are, I call them baby adults. Like, they're grown, they still live at home. And then I have a teenager, and I have this house. I have a dog to take care of. So most of my days I'm really busy, and I don't have a lot of time to really focus on my loss so much. I'm just busy living my life, doing what needs to be done, the laundry, mowing the lawn, cleaning the house, buying the food. My one child doesn't drive yet, and I'm trying to teach him how to drive. That's a trigger too. My husband was a really good driver, and I can drive, but he was the one who would teach the kids how to drive. And now my last one, he's not here, so I have to teach her from scratch. And it's really challenging. And a lot of times, when I'm teaching, especially in the beginning, I was frustrating her, she was frustrating me. And we do have a driving school, but it's the one that's in our area. The way it works is they want you, the person, to be able to do basic driving. They don't really teach them from scratch, which I really wish there was one like that. So I have to get her kind of up to speed, pardon the pun, before I can call them. And then what they do is they'll fine tune it, and they will actually test her. They'll teach her parallel parking because, like, forget it, I'm, the typical woman, I can't parallel park, no. So I need them to help, get her the rest of the way, where my husband could have done that. And so a lot of times when I'm in the car with her, it's just a reminder of, like, well, if Daddy were here, he would have done a lot better job at that, or he could have really helped you with this. And it's just that reminder that he's not here, and it's, I just feel like it's not fair for her. But, that's the reality. So, yeah, it's just, like, little things that'll kind of sneak up on you. And once in a while, like, we learned about this in Grief Share. It'll be like a grief storm. And you could be going about your day, having a great day, and then all of a sudden, boom, something, and it's usually something small, and it'll just set you off. I know that's kind of what happens to me. Like, they are definitely like a grief storm, because I'll just be feeling fine, and then something will happen, and then I'm just a wreck. It doesn't happen as often as it did in the beginning. Like, a good example was I was on vacation, and a little backstory, like, my husband, he did not like to go on vacation. He was a staycation guy. I always wanted to go on vacation, but it just would really stress him out. A lot of times we just financially couldn't anyway. So we did day trips. We did do a lot of day trips, and where we live, we did live around a lot of, like, touristy type things that we could drive to in a day. So it wasn't like we never did anything with our kids when they were young, but they were all day trips, never overnight, because it just wasn't his thing. So I learned to accept that. Well, after he died, my sister basically gifted me this vacation to go with my family. It was to celebrate my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, which was wonderful, but that in itself was a little bit of a trigger, because I knew that I was never going to have that. Even if I would remarry again, and I certainly hope that would happen sometime in the future, because I am 50, soon to be 51, there's logically, I'm not going to be married for 50 years with my second husband because of my age. I'd be the oldest, I'd break a record, and so that was kind of hard, but it didn't, I was just trying to focus on, A, being happy going on vacation, and B, celebrating my parents, because, what a wonderful thing to be married for 50 years. And for the most part, like, the trip was wonderful. The weather was great. We went to this beach, and the one day I was having a great day. I was having so much fun in the water, and like I said, the weather was perfect. The waves were perfect. Everything was just perfect, going fantastic. And then a wave hit me, and I lost my sunglasses, because I'm the weirdo. I always wear sunglasses, often a hat in the water, because I like to protect around this part of my face, because I have vitiligo, and if those of you that know, it's when, like, it's like this weird autoimmune thing that your skin cell, like the melanin, like, goes away in your skin. I guess something attacks the melanin, and then it, like, dies. So then you have the white patches. So if you see someone with white patches, so I've had vitiligo since I was a teenager, but it's gotten a lot worse when it, like, my 40s. It started spreading. So now I have it, like, really, I have it on my, you might even be able to see it on here, because I was away at a different beach, and like every summer I just feel like it pops out. So I have it around my eyes. So I call myself a reverse raccoon, and I use makeup. So I also try to wear sunglasses because the sun will really make it a lot worse. And also you could get burned on there because there's literally no melanin to protect your skin. So I always wear the sunglasses. So I'm in the water, I'm wearing my sunglasses, protecting my eyes. But I was having a great time, and I was, they were like tight on my head. Well, anyway, wave came, sunglasses, and they weren't even like great ones. It wasn't like I spent $300 on a pair of sunglasses. The ocean ate them, and for some reason, I was getting really, really upset. And my family was just like, well, they're just sunglasses. You can get another pair, which I'm like, of course, I know that. But at the time, I didn't even know what was wrong with me, because at the time, it was only about 5 or 6 months after he had died when I went on that trip. So even myself, I wasn't quite sure what was going on, why I was so upset. And I didn't want to upset the rest of the family. So what I ended up doing was I just went back to the house we stayed in, and I just cried. I took a shower. I love showers. Showers kind of help relax me and just clear my head. So that's what I did. I cried my eyes out in the shower, and got myself together. So by the time my family saw me, then I was like a normal human being again. And so later I learned through Grief Share that was like a grief storm, and those are very normal. So if you're experiencing that, guess what? You're normal. And it can be something as silly as sunglasses, like it was for me. Another one was very recent, because I haven't had one in a while. So probably it was in springtime, April-ish or something like that. My dog got sick, and we didn't own this dog when my husband was alive. My husband hated dogs, but my children always wanted a dog. And my husband was a cat guy. He loved cats, and he wanted a cat. But unfortunately, we couldn't have a cat because my one child is extremely allergic to cats. Like, she's very, very allergic. Her eyes swell shut. She breaks out in hives, we just couldn't have a cat. But she's fine with dogs. Like, she could be around 100 dogs in a closed room, no ventilation, and she's fine. So it's just one of those strange things. And she has always loved dogs, and they've always wanted a dog, but we never got a dog because Daddy didn't like dogs. And then right after he died, one of the first thoughts that popped into my head was, I need to get a dog for my kids. And I say that that's probably one of those God things, because why would you think that when your husband just dies? It's kind of like a weird random thought. And so I told them the week that he died that I was going to get them a dog, and I gave like a little timetable of when I thought we would do that. And so, and they were very happy about that. I mean, yes, they were very sad and grieving for their father, but they were very happy about this dog. And we got this dog, we got a puppy, and I do really think that was, I always say it's one of the best things I ever did and one of the worst things I ever did after my husband died. Because it was really challenging, because we had a puppy and we were newbies, so we weren't really sure what we were doing. But what it did do was it brought us together as a family, because at the time, I had, were they 3 teenagers, I guess, at the time? Yeah, 3 teenagers. And, teenagers, they tend to want to isolate themselves sometimes, or they just want to be with their friends. But this puppy, because I said, I'm not going to be the only one taking care of this dog. Like, if we're going to have this dog, this is going to be a family dog, and we're all going to help out. So, and the kids were very agreeable. We had a couple little problems here and there, but for the most part, we have a dog schedule. Everybody does their part, and it's been great, and it's really brought us together as a family. And also, he's brought a lot of laughs, some tears because he's been naughty, but for the most part, it's been a very good thing that we did. So this dog gets sick, We couldn't figure out what's wrong with him. And I am a basket case about this, like literal basket case about this dog. And what kept running through my mind was I was severely triggered was if this dog dies, this is going to be another loss for my kids, and it's going to be all my fault because I was the one who got this dog for my kids to help them in their grieving process, and now it's just going to die and they're going to have another loss to deal with. And how could I have done this to my kids? And I was just going through a time. And the funny part was my kids obviously were upset that the dog was sick, but they were like, Mom, like, it's not your fault, like, just it's one of those things, just it's okay. And I have really fantastic kids. I'm really, really blessed that way. And praise the Lord, the dog got better. It took a little while to figure out, and it was very, very expensive. But we have a great vet. My dog gets better medical care than we do, humans. It's pretty sad, but it's true. We have a fantastic vet who really goes the extra mile for our crazy dog. And so even though I paid a lot, I got my money's worth, I gotta say. But yeah, that was just another thing, that this weird trigger that just set me off. So yeah, hopefully I won't have, but I probably will. Like, I think grief, and as I tell people, it's not that you ever get over it, but you learn to live with it. You learn to move forward. I don't like to say moving on because that means you're leaving something behind, and I'm never going to leave him behind. He's always going to be in my heart, even if I remarry. He's the father of my children. Like, I'm never going to forget him. I had a whole life. We spent 27, well, actually around 30 years. We were married for 27, but we dated for a few years before. So, almost 30 years together. Like, you can't just really put that in the past. There's just so much wrapped up into that. But so I probably will have other little episodes down the road, but at least now I know what they are. And I don't really like to cry in public. I'm not one of those people. I'm more, sorry, camera decided to just, I'm done. My camera got triggered, I guess. So yeah, I'm more of a reserved person, so I'm not that type of person that is going to be crying all the time. And I do think that that's what some people think. I've had people tell me, oh, you seem to be doing really, really well. You seem to be coping really, really well. And I know they mean well, but sometimes it's slightly hurtful that they view, sometimes I think they view me as kind of, I've just completely gotten over the loss of my husband, and that's not really the case. It's just the type of person I am. Or I've had people that, that if I'm not crying all the time or crying when I'm talking about him, then that I didn't really love him, that kind of thing. And I don't really think that's fair, because if you are that type of person that, cries every time you say your spouse's name, that's fine. That's nothing wrong with, that's how you are. But not everybody's like that. And that's another thing I learned in Grief Share. So this isn't really a plug for Grief Share, but if you are looking for some support, I do recommend that program, and not all groups are created equal. I have heard some people that I know that went to Grief Share and didn't have as great of an experience as me. So that's not really a reflection on the program itself. I think that's more of a reflection on who's running it. So if you do go to a group and it's not working out for you, don't feel bad if you leave. You need to find what works for you. You need to be feeling supported. And if you do not feel supported, then I do recommend that you leave and find a different group. That's just my 2 cents about that. But yeah, I don't think I have that much more to say about triggers. It can just be, little things. Another thing that triggered me in the beginning was the closet. We had our bedroom, we have two closets, and one closet was his and one closet was mine. And so his closet was right across from the bathroom. So obviously, you use the bathroom on the daily basis. And so me seeing his closet, and he always had it open. So me seeing every day all of his clothes, all of his stuff, was a very huge trigger for me. So to help me with that, I cleaned out his closet. Now for somebody else, that might be comforting. So there might be like triggers that are like comforting in a way. So if you have not cleaned out your spouse's closet or things, that's okay. If that gives you comfort, that helps you, then when you're ready, you will clean it out. But for me, I cleaned it out the first month. It was making things worse for me seeing it. So that was something that I needed to do to kind of help myself. But yeah, I think I left the toothbrush in longer. But yeah, so those kind of things, and there can be, I would say, things that are happy triggers. So like one thing that always makes my kids and I smile is when we see a Pepperidge Farm chocolate cake. My husband was a type 2 diabetic. He wasn't supposed to eat that kind of stuff, but he had a big sweet tooth, and he loved the Pepperidge Farm chocolate cakes. And that's always like a happy little memory of him. He would bring them home, and of course I would scold him and be like, "You're not supposed to be eating those," and but he loved them, and he would share them with the family. Or he would try to like sneak it in and be like, "I don't know how this got here," and be like, "Really?" Or he would tell me, "It just jumped into my cart." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" And so whenever I see one of those, it's like a happy memory. It triggers me, but in a positive way. So I think you could have positive triggers too, that you would see something and it makes you think of your spouse and it makes you smile. And I think those things are wonderful. And my kids and I, we don't want, as time goes by, we don't want him to be forgotten. And so seeing those things kind of just triggers the memory of not forgetting him. Because I do, people have, it's been 2.5 years, so people are living their lives. I don't really have people checking in with me so much anymore, and that's okay. Everybody has to live their own life, just like I have to live mine. And they don't really talk about him anymore, so seeing those things helps us to remember, because sometimes being a widow, you feel like, as I would say, a stranger in your own life. And sometimes it's like, I'll think to myself, was I really married? Now, of course I was, because I have 3 kids and they wouldn't have been here if I didn't have him. But it's sometimes it's like, did I really live that life? But then I'll see those triggers like the cake, and then I'll be like, I did. He was here. He was on this earth with me. And just those little things, because it's like, I don't want him to be forgotten. I'm probably rambling. I can be a big rambler, but so yeah, I think that there can be happy triggers as well. Every time I see like tools, my husband loved tools. So if I see like, especially unusual tools, like one time he bought a wrench. It's like, we still have it. It's huge. It's almost 3 feet long, and the thing weighed probably 30 pounds. He never used it, but he thought it was cool and unique, and so he bought it. So if I see something like that, I'll be like, oh, he would have really loved that, and the kids will be like, oh, that's something Daddy would have liked. So that's kind of like a happy trigger, but there are those things that just evoke real raw grief in me still sometimes, like that restaurant, the store. Another thing, I think I would be triggered. I've chosen not to deal with it right now, is a clock. We have this large clock, and my husband was the last one to change the time on that clock. Like you fall back, you fall, spring forward, fall back. And he was the last one that set the time and he changed the battery. Well, since then the battery has died, and it's always, I think it's at set 7:45 or 8:45, and I can't bring myself to change it. So it's just staying like that. So some people are probably wondering, like, why is the clock stuck at that time? Well, that's why. And I think if I changed it, it would really trigger me big time. So I'm just choosing, like I said, like the stress thing, we're just gonna leave that alone right now. It just needs to stay there. And even the kids, they're like, Mom, just leave it. And so yeah, and they have certain things too that just kind of set them off a little bit. But yeah, think I'm just going to end on that and just, encourage you all that you are normal if you're experiencing some of these things. And you're also probably normal if you are not. I don't want you to be like, oh, I don't have that. So what's wrong with me? If you're not, that's okay. Like I said, everybody's journey is different. And as I always say, be the best you that you can be. And I will see you next time. Bye.